Okay, here we have a question about text messages sent by 40 teenagers in a day. So we've got 3 teenagers who sent between 0 and 2 text messages, 6 teenagers sent between 3 and 5 text messages. So it's a grouped frequency table. To work out the modal class or the mode is the number of text messages which occurs most frequently. And if we look at the number of teenagers sending the various numbers of messages, look for the highest number here, which is 15. 15 students sent between 9 and 11 texts. So in other words, the modal class is 9 to 11. And you should really write texts there. Okay, we're now going to go on and work out an estimate for the mean number of texts. And in order to do that, we need to work out an estimate for the total number of texts which have been sent. These first 3 teenagers sent between 0 and 2 text messages, so let's assume that they're evenly spread across that group, and we take the mid-interval then. So roughly, those 3 teenagers sent about 1 text message each. And we're going to multiply, if we like, we call this our frequency column, and this is our x column. We're going to work out f times x for each of those. So 3 teenagers sent on average 1 text each, so that's a total of 3 texts. 6 teenagers, if we look at the second group, 3 to 5, these 6 teenagers each sent roughly 4 texts. So altogether, they sent 6 times 4, well, that's 24 texts altogether. Now, if we carry on, the midpoint of the 6 to 8 group is 7. So 10 times 7 comes out as 70. So they sent roughly 70 texts between them. 9 to 11, well, that's about 10 texts each. 15 times 10 then is 150. So those ones sent about 150 texts. 12 to 14, well, that means they sent about 13 each. 5 times 13, well, that's 65 texts altogether. And 15 to 17, well, that's about 16 texts each. Only 1 teenager sent that many, so so that makes a total of 16. Now, we now need to work out the total of this column. Sometimes it's called the sum of the XF column, or sigma XF. And if we add those numbers together, they come out as 328. Now, to work out the mean then, the mean, and this is the best estimate that we can come up with, is actually the sum of that column. So in other words, the sum of the XF column divided by the total number of teenagers. In other words, the total of this column. Now, they've already told us in this question that there are 40 teenagers, so we know that that column is going to add up to 40. The sum of the frequency column, sometimes you're not given that and you have to work it out, comes out as 40. So in other words, we're going to do 328 divided by 40, which comes out as 8.2 texts. So that's 8.2 texts per student. And the last part of the question, it says, explain why your answer is an estimate. And you need to say something along the lines of, because the data is grouped. In other words, because you don't know, something like you don't know exactly how many texts, you don't know exactly how many texts each student, so how many texts each student sent. Okay, and that should give you full marks. You don't exactly know how many texts each student sent.